My black matters because suicide rates are increasing. A lot of kids are dying. A lot of kids are getting stabbed. There's a lot of people self-medicating themselves. There's a lot of people dealing with depression and never gonna come forward. So my black matters because we're losing a lot of people out here and nothing is being done. The last time that I wanted to end my life and contemplated suicide was last year, January. That was a troubling time for me. Probably experienced depression since I was a young child in some capacity. So privy to my experiences as well as the environments that I've kind of grown up in, it just gets a bit hard for me to process a lot of thoughts and emotions that I was dealing with.
There is something about being expected. I'm an eldest child. I'm a girl. I'm a black woman. And it's like years and years of being told you have to be better than everybody else.
I grew up in a fractured family with a single mother in the flat, and I saw domestic violence as a child. My dad hitting my mum. My dad was in prison when I was about 11 years old. I lost my uncle to HIV due to heroin addiction when I was 11 as well. I was kicked out when I was 17, and some of my family go through severe mental health problems. So for me, that's me processing a lot of different emotions and different thoughts. And me being the dominant one out of my siblings, and I'm the oldest, I have to be the provider for them. And I have three other siblings, so there's 4 of us. So for me to contextualize this and really get over my past as well as dealing with my present, it's kind of hard for me to process. There's been breakups in the process, there's been loss of jobs there, but dealing with all those things and internalizing my emotions caused me for a mental breakdown.
My father was very into education, and if I did anything to do with the stuff I love, which was sport, dancing, he wasn't interested. He wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer or something that traditionally black families have been, want to push because it's the stuff that makes money and you're seen as someone who matters. And someone worth listening to. So he was always the person. My mother never did this. He was always the person who, you have to be better than everybody else. And so in school, that's what I did. So I tried very hard to please what I thought he wanted. But when my parents split up, my mother wanted me to be happy. So when I said to her, I'm going to go to uni to do performing arts and dance, expecting some kind of, you are, she was like, yeah, go for it. Do what you want to do. But when you're growing up, all you're told is you must be better than the people in your class. If you're living in an environment where your parents come from a different culture, but that is not the culture that's being celebrated, then even if you're not told that, you see that there's no value. I didn't see myself as having, or my skin colour as being something to celebrate at all. And that's something you don't have to tell someone. It's just there. It was in my home all the time. It was constant. Do you know there are parts of my childhood that I have put at the back of my head? I know this because there are things I'm only now remembering. So I remember my father was a very dominant figure. My father was a preacher. And I know that I spent my formative years trying to please him and trying to live up to his expectation of how I should be. So there's me, I'm the eldest, and then my brother is the next one down, then another sister, then a brother. And somehow I know that my dad wanted a boy to be his firstborn. I don't know why I know that, but I do know it. And I know that because I knew that, I wanted to be the boy that he didn't get. I was academic and I loved school and I was bright and confident and outgoing and that kind of thing. And my brother wasn't. And I watched my dad kind of turn his attention on my brother, but tell him he mustn't cry, you know, he mustn't be sensitive, he mustn't, do you understand? So emotions were suppressed. Emotions were suppressed, you know.
A black male is supposed to come across as strong and, you know, got everything in order and no emotion. And you're kind of looked down upon if you shed a solitary tear or not. It's really, really difficult, I guess, to show emotion because I always had conflicting views with regards to showing emotion. Growing up with my mum in a single parent household where I was able to cry and my mum allowed it to happen. But if I went to see my dad's on the weekend and I cried in front of him, I was demonized and called a pussy. So for me, it's getting conflicting ideas about what it is to be a man and what it is to be a boy growing up. So is it socially acceptable to cry on one hand with my mum, or isn't it not with my dad? So for me to be lambasted for something that I can't control and how I react to a situation, I felt hard done by. But it's just for me gaining that self-awareness and loving myself to be able to say, you're right to cry, you know? You've gone through certain stuff in life that you really didn't ask for.
I was in teaching for 28 years and worked my way up. I was finding that work was getting on top of me. But if you're a teacher, it's like the Sorcerer's Apprentice. The work never stops. That's how it felt. And because I'm the kind of person who would want to do the best that I could, that's what I did. But I found in late 2014, things started to unravel. Both my girls went to university. They left the home. So I was on my own and I thought I'd love it. And I loved it for about 2 or 3 days. And then I became quite lonely. As a mother, when you're used to having your children around you and you always put them first because that's what happens, when they leave and they get on with their lives, which they're supposed to do, you then have to look at yourself and you have no choice but to look at your own life. And when I turned the mirror on myself, I realised that I wasn't particularly happy because all I was doing was going to work and coming home again. At the end of 2014, I had a breakdown and I took some time off. Had to take some time off work. I tried very hard to get better, to go back to work. That was my goal. And I went back for a little bit and then it became very clear that I was still very ill, and I have a very good friend who recognised that and came round to see me and said, no, you need to take some more time off. And again, trying to get better to go back to work because all I knew was teaching. And then I just decided I didn't want to do that anymore. I had an epiphany, let's just say. And the minute I decided not to go back to work and that I would leave and follow fashion, I don't mean follow fashion, follow my dream, which is a phrase I'm not comfortable with, but that's what I was doing. Then a weight lifted. So I concentrated on me and I realised that I had never really looked after myself properly. There's a lot of assumption that if the skin colour is the same, then you've had the same experience, and we get lumped together. But the African diaspora is huge. I think that's what bewildered me when I first met people who looked like me. I didn't understand why they were nothing like me. And I thought it was my fault.
I guess in some contexts and some people, how they perceive me as well as a black man, I should be angry at the world. I should be internally frustrated with the world. I should have a chip on my shoulder that's constantly eating me away, and I should be delinquent and probably unintelligent, or maybe not able to articulate what I'm feeling or thinking, as well as possibly be a roadman. at the end of the day. I should, you know, walk a certain way, I should talk a certain way. And if I'm probably seen as a bit different, it's probably gonna shock or surprise certain other people.
Okay, so you go on Instagram, you've got your black friends, male, who are posting all these gorgeous, arty, wonderful art, don't get me wrong, of these black women who always look a certain way. And they're always, you know, I saw one today where, you know, and then there's like words next to it saying, basically saying how we should be. And I want to write, fuck off. It's just, don't tell me what, you know. So this one woman, she's quiet and she's on her laptop and she's, you know, always got natural hair and she's glowing and the melanin's popping and all this kind of stuff, and she's looking after herself. There's enough policing. We don't need it to come from her own race as well. And there's just one more thing about the insistence on heteronormative values. It just drives me potty. You know, the world is changing, and you know, there are black gay people in the world. Do you know what I mean? And I think that whole woman should want a man and a, you know, a king and a queen and babies, and oh my God, some people don't want babies. Oh, you know, some people don't. Some guys like guys, some women like women. Some, you know, some people like to be on their own. Stop it. You know, some people want to put a weave in. That doesn't make them the enemy of progress.
I've been seeing these images since I was about 8 years old, to be honest. Like watching a lot of prevalent films from US culture, seeing what a black man should be like. So you kind of idealize some of these figures in the movies. They exist every day. They exist in schools, workplaces. They exist, you know, in conversations that you have with other people.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And you can't just be. And if you also, you know, take any notice of any media, which you really can't get away from these days, even if you don't watch the news, you're looking at social media, you're reading, you know, Facebook, looking on Instagram, that kind of thing, and you're watching your people be killed. You're watching I'll make it personal, I'm watching my race, you know, you're watching black bodies, and you're watching justice not prevail and people not caring.
You fear for your life every single day because you feel that another black man could potentially end your life. So you have to be wary in yourself that, you know, as you're walking on your day-to-day base, what is another black male gonna G-check you and say what ends are you from? Or is gonna pull out a knife on you? So some capacity is like you're already categorized by another black male before you even see them. It's a dialogue that exists on the roads, because if you know, if a black guy is gonna rob a white person, that white person is probably gonna run to the police. Or probably it's gonna be, you know, that person is gonna get 16 years in prison. But in this mentality that we've got in the black community is another black person isn't gonna snitch. So you're more privy to be tried to robbed or attacked. And it's gonna start a vicious cycle of revenge. It happens a lot in the current day culture, not only between my age group, lower age groups as well, where they feel that they need to prove themselves in order to prove that they are the dominant male in that setting.
It hurts. And so you have to take steps you have to take, you know, that buzzword, self-care, take steps, and you have to recognise and look after yourself, because you can't do everything and you can't campaign for everything. Does that make sense? So it's like I want to look after my own family because they're important to me, but I feel for people who look like me.
Well,